Hello everyone, my name is Caroline Berger, and this is my phenomenological study of the effects of COVID-19 on the field of industrial design. I completed this experience, this is after my freshman year, and I am doing this study to complete an honors experience. To do this research, I interviewed 4 people in the realm of industrial design whose perspectives I regard highly, including Professor Jeffrey Halter, who is an industrial design professor at the College of DAP, as well as Professor Peter Chamberlain, another DAP professor, and then a 5th-year industrial design student, Haley Rich, and a 4th-year industrial design student, Sarah Andrus. I also consulted various academic resources that I will address within this video about my studies and research. First, I wanted to kind of talk about what industrial design is in general before we get into the effects that COVID had on the field. So industrial design is basically the field that deals with designing and developing products, experiences, and environments of all kinds. So anything from medical equipment to user interfaces on electronics to cars, furniture, anything in between, it's likely that industrial design is a factor in that process. With that being said, industrial design, as described by Jeff Halter, is a field of problem solving where we are able to use our creative talents and our unique perspective to help people in different ways. So we come with very human-centric approaches. So with COVID, it was basically just a big opportunity for us to take what we are able to do with designing products and to help people in that way. I'll talk later about specific examples of these products and experiences, but basically industrial designers were able to embrace the struggle that our world had in this time and help people in very tangible ways. So going forward, it's no secret that COVID has impacted the lives of everyone. And COVID has really demanded a response from society. And now that we are moving through the end of what seems to be the end of this pandemic, we're faced with the task of kind of looking back on everything that's changed and all the effects and observing to them and reacting and analyzing them as we move forward. Professor Fethi Mansouri, a UNESCO chairholder, basically describes that COVID has allowed us to form a contextualized, holistic, deeply ingrained understanding of how different cultural systems respond to health crises. Me in the United States coming at this, I'm looking at how specifically industrial designers in the U.S. have responded to COVID. But that being said, industrial design is a global field, so I'm sure that in many other countries, designers are responding in similar ways. One of the continuous effects that we are actually still experiencing from COVID is the economy. The Harvard Business Review released a video during the start of the pandemic that talked about the economic effects of COVID. Stay-at-home orders were necessary, I believe that. However, they did cause some significant economic recession periods. Designers worked on innovations to correct these recessions and get back on capital growth tracks, including policies, medical products, and other experiences. But with supplies and demand changing so quickly, there's fluctuating so much, industrial designers had to take these changes into consideration. For example, once PPE became a very high demand, most designers were redirecting their focus, working with doctors and other innovative teams to start producing these quicker. However, then they would run into the issue of designing what needs to be produced, but then not having it be produced in time just because of how backed up factories were in manufacturing or because of limits in supply and such high and growing demand. One thing that the University of Cincinnati actually did to combat that was they developed an innovative design team where they were actually just harnessing all the talent of different aspects of the college, professors, students, other partners for the university, basically designing and producing PPE to kind of help offset the issues that there were with supply and demand. So that's just one example of how one organization helped with this issue, but many other universities and organizations across the country did similar things. Another major effect that COVID has had on the field of industrial design that I was kind of experienced myself, but also realized through interviewing the students and professors, are the effects that it had on communication and education. So this is definitely something that affect all fields of study, transferring to remote working, remote learning, remote communication. Obviously this would prevent various struggles, especially since industrial design is such a hands-on, interactive, collaborative, action-oriented field. It's very much about talking with others and creating and feeding off of energy. So it's kind of hard. It was a hard transition to start doing that over computers. So through my research, I learned that the pandemic gave cause to 1.5 billion students across the globe transferred to online learning. That's a lot of people. Seems while we have almost 8 billion in the world, that's 1.5 is a pretty big number. So presumably this would affect a lot of people. So as I was interviewing Haley Rich, the 5th-year industrial design student, she talked about how much of industrial design is physical interaction and personal critiques. So there was a large loss when you were no longer in studio, but actually having to do class from, your house or your dorm room. It also affected professors, though. I come from the perspective of a student, but I was given the opportunity to talk to some professors. Peter Chamberlain offered a really interesting perspective that he put in a fun anecdote. He said, "As I suddenly worked from home, I developed eye strain from sitting for 7 hours at the time and straight in front of a computer. I think of my position as a professor as being akin to a park ranger, roaming around in the park, tapping into various activities, studio, meetings, build lab, etc., stopping by my guard shack every now and then to check emails. The couple of COVID years was like being locked up in the guard shack." So he's basically saying that he felt like he was spending all of his time on the computer, which is what I can attest to saying as a student. Yeah, it's the same, just having to sit in front of a computer and act like nothing has changed. However, while there were multiple struggles to this virtual learning, Sarah Andrus, the 4th-year industrial design student, remarked that she thought it taught her a lot about herself and how she works and how she's able to communicate with a virtual world. And she goes on to say that has ultimately helped her communicate with her current employer. So she brings up a good point in now that we've been exposed to virtual communication and virtual learning, and we realize it might be something that we're going to continue doing, it's been good to learn it. Definitely a good tool to have in your back pocket, but also learning how to email. That's been a really big thing for, I know, students my age who are just getting started, but having to communicate via email almost exclusively at times, that has been really helpful to kind of practice those skills, which are going to help land co-op soon. So I want to talk a little bit too about how certain products and experiences that industrial designers had big roles in creating. Obviously, we know lots of PPE. So industrial designers were involved in rapid production of masks, hand sanitizer stations, plexiglass screens, thermometers, and at-home COVID testing kits. Industrial designers played a role in developing that packaging. Other products that kind of seem unrelated to COVID also grew in popularity, such as self-care products, at-home workout equipment, and home decor and furnishings. Sarah Andrus justifies the rise in demand for these areas of products because of the amount of time people began spending in their homes. They had little else to do, so they were just kind of focusing on bettering themselves and bettering their environments, I guess. Not only were these physical products designed too by industrial designers, but many experiences and processes had to be redesigned. For example, social distancing kind of changed the way that we do many things. So shopping was a big deal. So it was kind of harder for us to shop, which is why Kroger click list shopping, Target pickup shopping, delivery from restaurants and Amazon, these sort of processes became a lot more popular, and that's what people grew accustomed to doing. So now, as we move forward to the end of the pandemic, we'll see that some things are going back to normal, such as mask mandates, and social distancing mandates are kind of diminishing. However, certain things are probably going to stay, just like how I know in my family, we continue to clickless shop just because of how convenient it is for such a busy family. I have certain clubs that I'm still in that choose to meet virtually just because we realized how much better it was for all people, no matter where they were, they could log in and join. It just seemed like a much more feasible and convenient option. So we'll see that some of these things that we thought were harder to get accustomed to, we've actually grown so accustomed to that we see that they continue to stay. And that goes not just for industrial design, but many aspects in the country. So I wanted to finish by talking about how this research has really allowed me to grow as a global citizen scholar. I originally defined global citizen scholar as a curious, explorative, and active learner on an international level. However, I want to expand this now into being somebody who is actually able to use their talents and their interests to transform the lives of others. So for that, as for me, in COVID, it's being, okay, I'm an industrial designer, and I enjoy creating products and experiences that help others. So for me in COVID, this is providing a perfect example to see how I will be able to do that in the future. So if another worldly struggles like this come about, I can, really act on that global citizen scholarship by investing in my abilities as an industrial designer and helping the world in that way. So thank you so much for tuning into this experience. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My information is posted on my portfolio. And thank you.